Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. As you can see, I'm not in my normal setup, and that's because I'm currently in Texas for AMD's big Ryzen 7000 reveal, and big it certainly was. And before we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and say AMD was in fact sandbagging. This is big stuff. Oh, and really quickly before I get to it, I will say I'm going to have links to these down in the description below. They are affiliate links. They don't cost you anything more, but they help the channel out, and I'm going to have those down there for when these are available, to which I will get to in just a second. Okay, it's news time, and before we actually get into the performance, I'm going to go ahead and go over all of the CPUs, which if you've been following the channel for a little while, and of course, if you haven't, make sure to subscribe. You mostly already know this because these SKUs were already leaked. Either way, starting things off, we have the Ryzen 9 7950X, a 16-core, 32-thread CPU with up to 5.7 GHz. And a 4.5 GHz base clock. Then we have the Ryzen 9 7900X, a 12-core 24-thread CPU with up to 5.6 GHz and 4.7 GHz base. Oh, really quickly, 7950X has a combined L2 and L3 cache of 80 megabytes and a 170 watt TDP. 7900X has a whopping 76 megabytes cache with, once again, a 170 watt TDP. Then we have the 7700X. As anyone who follows the channel knows, this is what was coming instead of the 7800X, which is an 8-core 16-thread CPU with up to 5.4 GHz, and 4.5 GHz base. This one gets 40 megabytes cache with 105 watt TDP. Then we move down to Ryzen 5 7600X, which is a 6-core 12-thread CPU with up to still a whopping 5.3 GHz with a base clock of 4.7. This one comes with 38 megabytes of cache and, once again, 105 watt TDP. But of course, as I've said, you've seen all of this before if you've been following the channel. The big news here is going to be performance, and we're going to start off with a pretty big doozy. Let's not forget, for a little while, AMD was saying, oh, 15% single-threaded performance gains, or, you know, minimum. They were like over 15%, but of course when they give us over 15%, it's usually like 17%, something like that. Well, that is not the case here. When we look, we can see the IPC uplift itself is 13%. Then with the added massive jump up to 800 megahertz higher versus Zen 3 or Ryzen 5000, 5.7 gigahertz, we get up to plus 29% single-threaded performance gains. Now, some people may go, oh, well, that's just up to, but I'm not gonna lie, from what we've seen, it looks to be right at 29%, probably in quite a few workloads. And let's go ahead and show you this one for reference. We can see this is purely IPC, which obviously we are talking the average being 13%, but you can see even just with this IPC 4.0 gigahertz between the Zen 3 and new Zen 4 processor, so same exact frequency. This does not include the massive jump in frequency that it ended up getting in core clocks. We can see these 8-core 16-thread versus each other. It gets as high as 39%. So my point is that 29% is clearly the up to. Really, it seems more like it's around an average, or at least potentially, but certainly much better than that 15% that we saw. To further demonstrate this, we see from the 5950X to the 7950X up to 32% right here, 35% in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 6% Borderlands, CSGO 13%, but of course this is gaming performance. The creator performance up to 48% in V-Ray, 32% Corona Render, P of V-Ray 45%, really big numbers that we're seeing here. And then when we move over here, comparing it a little bit more to Intel's 12900K, they mention up to 57% faster in V-Ray render when compared to the 12900K. And of course, that is Intel's current gen. Obviously, they haven't released their next gen products, and we definitely want to compare them when they are released. But at least for now, that is a massive boost and potentially enough to make Ryzen 7000 very competitive with Intel's next gen. And moving on, they did something pretty interesting. They actually show that all of their next-gen Ryzen 7000 products are faster in single-threaded performance, at least in this Geekbench 5.4 test. We can see even the 7600X beats the 12900K. And because of that, you can see the fastest core in gaming. When we move over here, we see F1 2022, we're talking 11% faster than the 12900K as the 7600X. So this is their mid-range, lower end part versus Intel's current best. And we actually see this a little bit more. We see 5% faster gaming on average. You're probably thinking, well, 5%, not a big deal. Once again, this is the 7600X. Really interesting, just because we're talking a mid-range product bringing you better gaming performance than the 12900K. And of course, once again, when Intel releases their 13th gen, that is going to be interesting as well to see. But at least for now, it is looking like AMD really brought the heat with their 7000 series processors. Moving on, we get more of the general overlook compared to the current 12900K. They show 11% faster core for gamers, 44% more compute for creators, 47%, and this is something that they pushed quite a bit. The energy efficiency was really interesting. 47%, at least according to AMD, greater energy efficiency when compared to the 12900K. And of course, that is definitely going to be one thing to look out for with 13th gen, just because we see that 13th gen is going to get more cores, but it does look like it's going to get way more power hungry as well. Next up, there's one thing I want to touch on that they went over, and this is their AMD Expo technology. With this, basically think of Intel's XMP profiles. According to them, you're going to get with their Expo up to 11% better performance in gaming at 1080p when you overclock using AMD's Expo. And of course, this is up to, but we are also only talking about memory overclocking. And I will go ahead and state that AMD did make it clear XMP is still going to be compatible with their AM5 platform with their Ryzen 7000 CPUs. So if you already do have DDR5, it is going to work with it out of the box. But I will say that they did state you might, at least may, see a little bit better performance if you were to get the Expo based RAM. And I don't have the slide for it, but I believe they're going to have, they're going to have up to 15 Expo memory kits at launch, and that will be up to 6,400. And finally, we have availability and price. And here, things look pretty good. First off, you can see they are going to be available on September 27th with the Ryzen 7950X coming in at $699, 7900X $549, 7700X at $399, and 7600X at $299. Basically, it does look like AMD did not go up on price. In fact, some of them, they actually went down a little bit in price, like the 7950X, the 7700X. Well, this is the 77, not the 7800X, so I'm not really sure, but basically they did not go up in price. That is obviously great news, though of course when Intel releases their 13th gen, we will have to see how it compares, and obviously AMD may make a little bit of changes when that does happen, but at least for now prices look pretty decent. And of course I will have links to these down in the description below for when they're released. So while that does it for today, are you pumped for AMD's Ryzen 7000? I will say that I was pretty surprised. Does seem like they at least a bit sandbagged us, told us it was, 15%, yet we're seeing very, very good performance differences here. Obviously, we're going to have to wait until reviews are out and we really get to try these ourselves before definitively saying something like that. But at least from this, I'm excited. And as always, have a great day.